Y'all ready to get started?
Let's do it.
We've got 10 or 11 people here, so I think we're close enough to a quorum. Appreciate y'all being here today. Opening remarks, I just want to say that Bob and I, and I think a couple of others, Bryce, of course, was there at the Bernie City Council meeting last week and made a presentation. Several people watched it online. I think things went well. We kind of reviewed things and had a good interchange. I don't really have anything else to add, Bob.
I think it was just what it needed to be. I think it was what you guys expressed that you wished to go do, and we just explained what we've been doing. There was one article written out of San Antonio that didn't quite catch the tone. It was as though Don and I went to apologize for not having been transparent, when in fact we went there to explain how transparent we've always been and remain that way. So, Zach, you wrote a better article than they did, so compliments again.
I think you aced it. I was really impressed. I really was. I watched it live and I was like, right on, guys. Nailed it. You captured us well.
I want to reiterate that if other members of the committee haven't had a chance to see the video, I think it's worth watching. I thought that it seemed well received. The discussion seemed right on track. I was much happier with the tone of kind of how that meeting went. So thank you all. I thought you all did a really good job representing the committee.
We'll be going to City of Fair Oaks Ranch on Thursday evening, their city council meeting at 6:30. Bayou set that up for us, appreciate that, and then we'll present to Commissioner's Court Monday morning, time to be determined. So, of course, y'all are all welcome to be there, but we're not really taking any action, just reporting. We'll continue to do that, I think, every so often, just to keep the dialogue and narrative, to use their word, under control and moving in a positive direction. The minutes were passed out. I know that, appreciate Erica, good job again. I read through them, I didn't have any questions. I don't think anybody's had a chance to look at them beforehand, so we will defer those until next month, next meeting. And then we'll move into public comment. Go around the room. Seth, anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Emler? Zach? You sure? So you're not going to write an article about us?
I should say no promises.
I have something.
Go ahead.
My name is Nolan Keene. I'm a citizen of Fair Oaks Ranch, having moved over with my wife, moved over 18 years ago from Houston, and it's only recently that I found out about the Kendall Bernie Fair Oaks Ranch Transportation Committee, and going through all of the online stuff, I find out that there was an action item or a note about non-project related, develop a bicycle plan, countywide bicycle plan. That's right down my alley. I mean, I'd like to see. And I guess, I look back at former Mayor Howard Peak in San Antonio, what he envisioned 20 years ago. And now we know it as the Howard W. Peak linear greenway system. What's kind of flying under the radar with that are these connector trails that you don't really hear so much about. And that's going to enable people in San Antonio, or anybody visiting for that matter, to be able to go around the city, whether it's for a job or tourist or whatever. And I think we need to get away from the auto-centric way of thinking. And when I say auto, I mean as in automobile thinking, and and look toward developing some stuff out here. When I say stuff, I mean trails and so on, and with some interconnectivity and so on. And I go back to what happened a couple of years ago when Dr. K. Ruse was killed by a drunk driver in the rim. She escaped, and they caught her down somewhere, I think, near the Dominion. And she had the audacity to ask for her beaver back because she's making payments on it. I mean, no remorse whatsoever. Tito Bradshaw, another one. My good friend Brent Wells here in Bernie almost lost his life back in 2013. And, I could go on. And I guess it's the safety issue that I'm concerned about. One of my friends, George Hall, lives here in Bernie. He comes over and parks his car in Boots Galvat's Park and then rides around Fair Oaks Ranch. Well, he's been hit twice in a tranquil little community of Fair Oaks Ranch. So, you know, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be some improvements. There's got to be a look down the road that Howard Peak had with his vision. And I guess I'll leave you with this October 14th article in the Hill Country Weekly. Fatalities mounting for cyclists and pedestrians. It said, despite a decrease in traffic crashes in 2020, Texas saw a dramatic rise in the number of people killed walking and biking. Last year, 731 people died in pedestrian-related crashes, an increase of 9% from 2019. Crashes involved cyclists claimed the lives of 82 people. Yeah, we can do better than that. So, and 25% of those involved alcohol. So, I have a few copies of this article if anybody would like to have it. I just copied that front page contains the essential information. So, let's be a visionary like Howard Peak was.
Thank you. Yeah? Lance?
Could I ask Jeff a question after the close of public comment?
Sure. Jen? You want to do it publicly, or you mean after the meeting, or?
No, I guess after the close, just, you know, right here, for public comments. Instead of having him speak during public comments. Okay. A question for Jeff Carroll. The September 17th AMPO meeting, I believe you were present at that meeting. Could you comment on the two items in particular, the State Highway 46 being labeled the next loop for San Antonio, and also Farm to Market 3351 potentially being delayed by TxDOT, the widening?
I'll have to double check. I believe that's the meeting I was at. I don't remember the exact date. But yeah, the last AMPO policy board where all the communities provided their presentation.
Right, it was the board meeting.
Okay, correct. So yes, I was there. I presented. Commissioner Bergman and I both gave a little presentation. I don't, off the top of my head, remember 3351.
That might have been that later TxDOT presentation.
Okay. So yeah, I don't remember that off the top of my head. I did, in my presentation, I talked about City of Bernie, South Kendall County needs, and what we're seeing. This is kind of a projection for 2040, 2050 long-term goals. And one of the, I did talk about the origin and destination studies that we've received, and I made a comment that I travel east of Seguin on a monthly basis, and I use, after 10 years of fighting I-10 TxDOT, I use Waze basically every time I leave my house, or Google, those traffic-based GPS programs. I made the comment that when I leave and head to east of Seguin, about half of the time it tells me to take Highway 46 to Bulverde, to New Braunfels, to Seguin, instead of going to I-10 to 1604, I-10 to 410, or I-10 all the way to downtown. So that was a comment I made, that if Waze is telling me to do that half the time, how many other people is it telling to do the same thing? So I believe that was the statement I made about Highway 46 being the outer loop.
But I believe the board was talking about State Highway 46 becoming the next loop for San Antonio, or was that, did you catch any of that? Or
I don't remember. I think they talked at future conversations that's been looked at before by TxDOT, but I don't remember.
And did you hear about the narrowing of 3351 being delayed to like 2030, or
Widening.
I'm sorry, the widening. Sorry. Yeah.
I've just heard feedback that TxDOT and the City of Fair Oaks are not on the same page, is all I've heard. That's outside city, it's just gossip I've heard.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
I didn't recall you saying anything about third loop. I think that was said by a commissioner from Comal County.
Yes, it was,
Yeah.
but I was just wondering about his recollection of it. Yeah.
Seth?
Don, one doesn't need to rely on Mr. Carroll's recollection of the meeting.
Right.
The meetings are recorded, and you can go online and you can watch them. So that record's online.
Right. I was just bringing it up for the benefit of people that hadn't accessed it online.
Okay, we're gonna move on. We have the,
Rankin has something to say.
oh, I'm sorry, Rankin.
You know, talking about 46 being the next, Loop 16, being the next loop around San Antonio, they've been talking about that since 1990. We did a subdivision out on 46 in 1990, and we were told at that time that 46 would be the next loop around San Antonio. So that's really nothing new, I don't think, because it's been back in the early 90s.
Anybody else? Okay, Northern, I think you have continued to outperform. And are we gonna finish today, or are we gonna? Well, we're gonna get started.
Okay, so just before we went into the project, I wanted to mention that the MPO actually tagged our committee in a Facebook post about this. It's a new survey on their Your Move website, and it's about your future of transportation. It's very quick, it looks like. I never discount the importance of a survey, so just putting that out there to please go fill it out yourself, share it with your constituents, and however. But that's, I think they tagged us in that just a few days ago, so I'm not sure how long that will stay up.
Northern, if you don't mind, so MPO actually reached out to us as well, kind of asked for a calendar of events. And the MPO is planning on being at Dickens on Main and market days and a handful of events. So they're taking record of what people come and talk to you about as transportation issues. So if you do see a MPO person sitting around, it wouldn't hurt for you to go talk to them.
Are they gonna dress up?
I believe they'll have little boots.
You know, on that topic, I imagine, we've extended an invitation to them to rejoin these meetings. I know that they never really came back after the pandemic, beyond Cecilia being involved with it. So I'm sure we've done that.
I mean, I told him they're always welcome, but,
Yeah.
I mean, they've got plenty of things to do.
No, nothing to do. But, you know, they attended every one pre-pandemic and stuff.
Okay, so last week, the various victims, volunteers came to meet at Kerr Farm, and I do want to thank Kerr Farm for hosting us there in their meeting space. We kind of went through a lot of the projects and got rid of the duplicates, got rid of the ones that were impossible, and just went ahead and put some of the ones through that were obvious, ones that we've talked about in the committee. We will always get a chance to review all of those before anything gets put in the final report. So, and we will tentatively be meeting again next Tuesday, the 26th, at Herb Farm at 9 a.m. I'm just waiting on that meeting space to be confirmed, if anyone else wants to come help. Okay, so we will be going through the ones today that we thought just needed a little extra discussion, or were obvious ones that we just didn't want to put them on there automatically. So this one, we talked about this one being a long-term project. This would connect School Street across I-10 to Upward Balcones.
So this goes over everything?
Over, under something, yeah.
So it's a direct connection?
Yeah.
Bridge over New Bridge.
Wow.
I didn't even realize they lined up so well.
It's funny you started with this when we talked about like, well, maybe someday when tunneling is considered.
Pre-I-10, those were one road. It was when in the 60s when I-10 was built, bisected those.
That was actually, wasn't it still Sisterdale Highway? I think that was just Sisterdale.
It probably was.
Went straight through, yeah.
So would you want to see this in a long-term bucket of reconnecting flex or something?
I think it's not very practical. That's just me.
Northern, I think we also discussed, we have a short term and a long
Yeah,
term.
this
Do we want to start a long futuristic term bucket?
Well,
That's kind of
Assuming our cars are still attached to the road, not Jetsons.
I guess TxDOT's putting in a park and ride on the, one of those corners?
Yeah.
There's west side.
So there'd be a, you have to go over the parking ride or under the parking ride?
I think grade-wise, you'd have a hard time getting back down without impeding
Starbucks.
the access roads. Just my, what you think, Jeff?
Yeah, that would be really tough.
Too many other projects there.
You can have a Starbucks at the subway
I
station.
agree with Don's assessment on this too. I think it's just too,
So, since
the
we're,
cost would be millions and millions of dollars for that.
so we're on that picture, just gonna, we heard from TxDOT this morning that they're gonna start driving on the new bridge tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
So tomorrow morning, traffic is gonna be iffy as they change the traffic patterns there. So, just like make sure everyone's aware, and so if you are southbound from Comfort and wanting and making that exit, you will not be able to make a left turn into Bernie at that intersection. So you need to take,
Wait, at the 46 Home Depot kind of exit?
correct. So
Okay.
you need to take Business 87 at the north end of town, or Johns Road, or you can go all the way down and make a U-turn somewhere else. But there'll be a several week time period that you will not be able to make a left.
Northern, this is one that I think I would recommend we consider moving this on for further discussion. Essentially doing what they did at the City Park Road, where they have it one way, where you can go in. So to me, I like the idea of making it, you can go north from Bernie to access all those businesses, but to come back, you would just have to go down to Sisterdale Highway and loop back around.
This is one of those that, you know, everybody hates 5 points, but the decision about the Sisterdale Cutoff Road was kind of, goes back and forth.
If I could comment from our subcommittee meeting, I think the recommendation was to recognize that that particular intersection and all the parts and pieces were important that we move forward on the more immediate timeline, but it took better planning as to how that would ultimately look, whether we make a recommendation of making that cutoff one way, to cul-de-sac it, eliminate it, and so it, rather than belabor that within this committee, that it needs to go back to a higher authority, whose name is Jeff, to look at some different recommendations, and then it comes back as some feasibilities.
I mean, I think the decision, if you guys make a decision or group consensus for that road, it will affect the 5 points itself. I mean, it could be the 5 points is now 4 points, and we can make it a more simplified.
I think what we talked about was we really were we really stressed that we thought it should be a roundabout, and that then as a city should go to TxDOT and say we think that the right of way is there to make it a roundabout, because TxDOT leans towards the non-roundabout solution, which then throws a whole different layer of issues into play.
Because when we continue through the crowdsourcing information, we got issues on School Street there, we got issues on Adler, we got issues on Sisterdale, so we thought of clumping them together into, because there's some intersection improvements that could improve that entire, that big bucket of concerns.
Jeff, 1376 was just improved. Was it 2 lanes each direction? No?
No.
Or 1 lane with a turn lane?
Not even a turn.
It's just 2 lanes.
Question whether they
They just
represent.
paid.
No.
So this would help with safety issues too, wouldn't it? There's no left-hand turn off of 1376 down to School Street, no rear-end collisions, no T-bones when they turn left. It helps with the congestion at Adler at 5 points until there's a roundabout. Maybe this is a good short-term fix.
I was thinking about that too, as far as a short-term fix that's very low cost, It wouldn't be anything but putting up some signs and repainting a few things, although we've learned that paint is not cheap when it comes to roads. I don't think this necessarily would necessarily be in place of the roundabout. I think a roundabout or a better intersection could happen there, but this could be a short term.
I think it helps alleviate some congestion immediately at a relatively low cost expense.
And what do you two recommend? I missed the actual.
What
happens?
One way.
What is the name of that street? Is that School Street?
North
School Street.
North School?
Yes.
Okay.
Or if you're
Commonly called Cicero Cutoff.
Yeah. Make that a one-way going north.
Change for that. If it grows one way.
So I'm in favor of pushing that forward.
Any objections? Add it to the list.
I just need to discuss it more.
Trying to get a new job.
They're on the northern
Close this to make it one way north.
That gets the more extreme. Their outline is still one way. It's the same one.
So continuing on School Street, this one was brought up in the meeting. Add bike lanes along School Street. And City Bernie has said, there's no right-of-way there, correct? Yes, no right-of-way along School Street?
I would need to buy a whole bunch of people's houses to
Yeah.
make that happen.
So
Nope.
what is that, what will that area, is that area expected to infill along School Street?
What about looking at like,
From Frederick Creek south on the west side, there's a lot of undeveloped property. But from Frederick Creek north, I can't think of any. I can't think of any undeveloped parcel. There could be redevelopment, but I can't think of anything.
There is a sidewalk on the side. That's a mean deal.
What about looking at like Live Oak Street, like a street that runs parallel to that? Or I guess it doesn't run parallel all the way.
No, it stops right.
Yeah,
Right
it's
here
here.
at John's in this school district.
Yeah.
Is there, I'm trying to remember, did they add a sidewalk there? They did a bunch of work
On School Street?
Yeah.
On the east side.
So the city actually worked a deal with the Catholic Church to acquire some right of way
Okay,
to build that sidewalk.
okay. And it extends the entire length of School Street now, or no?
From Westwood to,
It goes from First Baptist
what's that?
north. I mean, from First Baptist, there's a
Island
huge
to Hosea.
drop off. Yeah.
Highland.
I live in the
Highland
south.
Coast.
Right there.
Yeah, School Street is very narrow once you go past the schools.
Right. There's only about a foot or two from the curb to the property line in most places, so.
Gas on gas on the side. Stop signs.
This is one, we actually didn't talk about this one in the, this is Winding Woods Extension. This is well on east side of town,
So
Woods Burning.
well, you have it there, but that's on our major thoroughfare plan, so if anyone were to ever develop that tract, they would be required to build that.
So it doesn't hurt for us to say we like that part of the major thoroughfare plan.
Absolutely. Yeah, guys, I want to reiterate again, let's not get hung up of whether city staff has endorsed something or whether they've already got it on a plan or what TxDOT may think. This is a citizens committee, and we've been asked to be the voice of the citizenry about what ideas and concerns we have. And recommendations, and then other people can take our recommendations, prioritize them, use them, ignore them. The thing up at 5 Points we just talked about, perfect example. I don't care if TxDOT doesn't want to do a roundabout. If we do, we need to say so. And let it be. And it has a life of its own. People can be innovative with their drawing pencils or ignore it. But let's not get hung up over who who else may have already said okay.
Yeah, I agree that as we update our thoroughfare plans, if there's parts that you want us to change or parts that you want us to undo from our thoroughfare plan, that's something we can do if we hear from this committee.
And on that point, would it be a good idea to have Jeff, you come in and give us one more presentation before we make our recommendations on the thoroughfare plan as it currently exists?
Sure.
Just to refresh our memories and maybe it can spawn some innovative thinking on our part?
Sure. I have no problem.
Plant Road, looks like between Adler.
They're just asking for speed bumps on Plant, is that what this is?
Drivers speed well beyond speed limit, routinely on this residential road.
Speed bumps make up.
Honk. Also do that bump.
You will see Plant again in just a second. Large list of pedestrian and bike.
I mean, I think it's a legitimate comment. I don't know that it addresses congestion. It's a safety issue, particularly the residents of that area. But,
So I'll comment the city's point of view. Again, you guys can say whatever you want. The city's point of view is speed bumps and speed humps don't work. Number one, half the people in town drive big trucks, and they'll speed up and go over them faster. They actually drive faster to go over them. Or number two is people find the alternate street. So now the traffic that we're going on this street are going to start driving on the other street. So it's our city policy that we don't install speed bumps. But if you guys were to recommend something, maybe we would review that policy.
I don't think we need to push that forward for further discussion. That's just my opinion.
It seems like a legitimate concern, but too specific and detailed for one, I mean, it's almost like every homeowner could ask for speed bumps in front of their house too, so I just don't know if that's within the scope of what we're looking to do.
Don't be excited. All right. This one is a certain committee member's favorite, the pedestrian light on River Road.
That would be me.
Yeah. You don't have a vote.
On crowdsourcing, I do.
We talked about this one in our little meeting, that having the hawk signal installed on, thank you, that one, that this would be one, because there were dueling suggestions at this crossing. One person wanted an additional crossing, something like that. Another suggestion was to remove it altogether because it was confusing. And it is, I mean, I personally...
Would you remind everybody what a hawk signal is?
A hawk and what they're currently constructing on Blanco right now, it will be a push-button red light. So
Pedestrian
it'll be pedestrian. So it's the lights are blank, but when you push the button, it'll cycle through and it'll actually be a red light. And it's enforceable by the police that you're stopped at a red light. And then it'll time out and it'll go back. It'll blink yellow and it'll go back blank again. I'm trying to remember what the acronym is. It's an acronym for something.
High intensity activated crosswalk.
Yeah.
I have to look it up every time.
Yeah.
Say that again.
High intensity activated crosswalk beacon.
It's a very specific text approved item.
It comes from the HA and the.
It's phonetic, it's phonetic.
So, I will comment. It took us a year and maybe 4 traffic counts, pedestrian counts, to prove that we had the pedestrian volume to make it work for Blanco. And TxDOT actually let us adjust our numbers, be creative using this car volume from this day and this pedestrian count from this day.
In that exact location, though.
To make it work where TxDOT would be willing to put it in. The problem at Plant is that we don't have the pedestrian numbers to make it happen. And we don't have the pedestrian numbers to make it happen is because the majority of people don't use it. Everyone just walks across at Dodgy Duck and elsewhere. So we need. We can do the pedestrian counts, but it's TxDOT and warrant system. They have all these rules, and you have to be able to prove traffic count to make it work.
That was that's one possible location. Is there any other location where it may be more feasible to put in that general area, like
a hawk?
Because I think your concern is that there would be one there, but there's one block farther not, right?
Yeah, we need,
And what's
yes,
wrong with that?
yeah.
It's outside the box.
Since this is my deal, let me expound a little bit. I find it absurd that we don't have the pedestrian count to make a safe pedestrian crossing.
Go get run over.
Well,
Didn't that
so,
happen? Didn't the guy get hit?
Yeah.
I saw the helicopters coming in, the guy got seriously hit.
So they didn't get hit at the beacon, they got hit in front of Dodging Duck.
Which is where we're
Because
talking about putting a beacon, right?
well, no, this one's shown at Plant.
Oh, I see.
Where the existing one
Hey,
is.
Tim, can you let her in?
So that,
So here's the nickel version of that story. They agreed to put in a pedestrian crossing light. And by their formulas and pedestrian count, TxDOTs, they said, this is what you get is the one that we have. Well then, if you walk this community and you're coming down Plant Street, and you want to cross River Road at that light, you cannot see either directions yellow lights that go blinking. So you're blind to the fact that anything's happened when you push the button. There used to be an audible feedback that go beep, beep, beep. Well, the residents of the heart of Bernie apparently were irritated by the noise, so they've disabled the noise. So now a pedestrian walks up and hits the button and nothing happens. And yet they're supposed to feel safe about crossing, and all that's happening is silent, yellow, blinking lights. What does that mean in Texas? Hit the gas. The only people, in my walking experience, the only vehicles that'll take that seriously are the 18-wheelers that don't want to get sued by the TV lawyers. Cars just ignore it. And so, yeah, my attitude is we needed a hawk light. I'm pretty outraged that TxDOT says we don't have enough pedestrians, like how many people need to get hurt or killed, because it's going to be young mothers with babies. Or take it out, because I would rather people know your life is on your own hands to cross River Road rather than create the illusion of a safe crossing, because it is not. It's just not. And it's really dangerous. That's my sermon. I've said it 100 times. There's 101.
So if we could get enough people creatively to walk across at that crossing when you were taking the census. Dressed up for Dickens.
Well, or you move it to where there is a large crossing, which could be the Dodging Duck.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
To me, whether it's here or Dodging Duck doesn't make a big difference.
No
But
big deal.
having a protected crossing on that road is critical.
I agree.
I mean, to me, it makes sense where the crossing itself makes sense where it is, you have a large sidewalk to queue people up on.
So you just move
It's
down
just
one
the
block.
type of crossing.
Or get the city to sacrifice the Bryant Road from.
well, why don't you make that note moving forward?
I like the idea of all of us having lunch and dinner at Dodging Duck whatever day we choose. And
I'll tell you what
take
to
it.
Come here, traffic
Those
counters.
pedestrians by hand.
I put cameras up.
Is that in the budget?
Vote early on.
Northern, I would say, oh, they added that it could also be in front of Dodging Duck. I think.
Wherever that street is.
So we would have to physically apply or approach TxDOT, Jeff, to have the same hawk signal going in on
It
Blanco.
took me a year of conversations to get the one.
It'd be really easy to change the light bulbs out.
All right.
Now that we got it all built.
Well, see, the hawk light goes solid red when the pedestrian pushes the
I use
button.
one every morning.
Long enough for them to cross, and it goes back green forever until somebody else hits the button. So it's just perfect.
The other, in our conversations with TxDOT, which I've had many, we have one pedestrian actuated beacon on River Road, and we're soon going to have our one hawk. Our drivers just aren't used to it. Is the TxDOT answer is you go to San Antonio, you cross Broadway with a pedestrian actuated beacon. So if you want to go from the Whitty and cross the road, across 4 lanes of traffic, they're using a flashing yellow beacon, not a red light. So it's getting, but there's also multiple ones of those up and down Broadway. So people are, they've been in place for years and people are used to them. And this is what TxDOT will continue to tell me, is that it's a communications, maybe it's a communications issue that we need to help our general public understand what the flashing yellow light is.
Well, I know they understand what red means. So
Yeah, they
let's go
understand
for
red.
Yeah.
My contention is using a bad idea a whole lot of times doesn't make it a good
Yeah,
idea.
that's on TxDOT.
I think Bob's right on this score. I think we ought to move it down, dodging duck, and make it a hawk.
And so like that was blatantly obvious to see no matter what direction you were coming from, even turning from where the little kiddie park used to be. And so like they had it on either side and then in the middle. And like they even, I want to say, if I remember correctly, had something on the road that flashed. So it was like multiple points where whatever driving direction or even walking direction you came from, you could see it. Whereas like here, personally, I feel like when I'm walking or driving, a lot of the lights, there's nice, big, beautiful trees, which I love, or things in the way, and so I'm like inching all the way out, and my car's hanging out, you know, where somebody's having to walk in the traffic just so I can see that it's safe, and then for them to see that it's safe. So it's like, even those blinking lights, like they're great, but the blind sight is terrible for everybody. It's useless for everybody.
Okay, so here are the 6 different comments, six comments regarding pedestrian and bike for plant. And by the way, congratulations, we just got through all the ones that our little group had whittled it down to. So now we're on to the ones that we didn't get to. We're going to have to whittle some of these down a little bit. So these are all of the plant comments. Improved crosswalk for safety. Jeff Carroll said that the crosswalk is here, but there's also a drainage issue for improving that. Is that correct? Did I say that correct?
Oh, yeah. It's underwater right there usually.
Yeah, there's a lot of water right there. But there is a painted crosswalk there. And there we have rumble strips on both sides of it, which we get a lot of complaints about.
I mean, I walk it all the time. I've never had issues at that crosswalk. It's not that much traffic usually.
Just have to swim through it sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's a do not include because it's currently okay? Or is that an improve in the future?
I mean, if the crosswalk's there, what improvement
Yeah,
to the crosswalk would be made?
I don't think we can.
Not without improving anything. Pedestrian island or refuge needed. This is the crossing.
Blanco.
Yeah. Plant crossing at Blanco because you've got Carrington.
What was the recommendation on Blanco? Were we going to 3 lanes?
Road diet.
We decided to further that discussion later.
I mean, if you're gonna put Blanco on a road diet, you wouldn't want to put pedestrian refuge at this location.
There's an extra 2 turn lanes there with the road diet.
Well, there is
Extra, yeah. So it's even more.
We could have with a road diet, we could have a median that extends.
You could, yeah.
Yeah.
I can say that intersection right now, the paint on all that crosswalks is very faded, or at least it was at one point. Did it get repainted?
I think it did.
We
Okay.
typically redo all the schools in the summertime, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So this would be an include in a road diet.
No. I'd say
Okay.
include the recommendation.
Do not include?
No.
Include, okay.
Doesn't the school district, don't they have crossing guards
Yes.
before and after school?
Yes. Yes.
They'll stop you.
No,
They won't stop you.
the crossing guards have been hit at that intersection.
Really?
Yeah, I've watched it happen.
I'll stop them.
Well, good.
Thank you,
You can do the
I've done my
PSA.
civic duty.
This is similar to the first one. Water stands regulated at this crossing. This is the old number 9.
That plan.
That plant. fix drainage, elevate sidewalk to slow cross traffic and address drainage. We did not include the first one.
That one is specific though.
This one is more specific.
I mean, I think that everything they say there is a good idea. It's just a question about if, you know, how much money do we have for all those small things? But we do have the new, stormwater utility.
A lot of money there, though.
Yeah, good luck for that one.
Does this cause congestion, or is it just inconvenience?
It's really the water, I think, that's the worst thing on there. Because I've used that, I've never had a problem with that crossing.
It is true though, with people walking, if you're walking, you're to try to get from A to B, and you get there, it can be not passable.
Correct.
Wearing shoes.
Oh, yeah.
Or, you know, you gotta.
No, you have to go way out of your way to get away from that water.
If you're sending your kids to school on foot, would this crossing being underwater impede that?
I mean, I think this is good to make people aware of. I think it'd be good to put it forward and have it sit in one of those low priority, but things that we all need to be aware of buckets that.
Maybe some drainage fixes come in.
Straw.
Okay. This location, said this location, and this is probably a homeowner, HOA, not sure, says the view is impeded by vegetation.
At James Street and on the plant.
Oh, I see, when you're coming off on Rosewood headed toward
With
Main.
with my city hat on, I will comment that any vegetation that's in front of your property is yours to maintain. It's not the city's to maintain, it's yours to maintain. So we do send letters to landowners every now and then when we get told that there's a safety concern. We'll send a nice letter, please go fix it. If we don't hear back from them or we don't see it happens, then eventually we'll go do it sometimes.
What's happening with Rosewood, though? Aren't you guys doing a widening sidewalk project?
Correct.
Which would presumably fix that problem anyway, maybe.
I think this is just outside the purview of the community.
Yeah, we may fix that with our sidewalk project.
It's probably solved.
Or just like call the city rather than.
This one is too.
I'll get Rufus to cut it down.
There you go.
He hates the list.
Very badly invasive.
There's a bike lane on Plant to connect to Old Number 9, River Road.
What would that entail? Would it entail paint, or would it entail widening the road and removing parking? I just don't know.
Well, Plant is pretty wide between Blanco and River Road. It chokes down a little between Blanco and Adler.
Still pretty wide there.
People park a lot on it between Blanco and Adler.
So, and I believe,
Paint?
Center.
But is there parking on the whole thing, on both sides?
Are all these kids zoned to Cureton?
No.
They're not?
It's Rosewood is kind of a dividing line.
I don't want parking.
I'm hearing that.
Would a bike lane take that away?
And I haven't studied Plant. My initial thought is if we maintain the curbs as is, we're going to lose parking to put a bike lane in. So you guys tell me if that's what you want.
Northern, when you say MPO bike maps, does that mean that's on the MPO bike map?
Yes, this is on the MPO bike maps as, didn't actually write it down there, which one, what priority that falls on the maps. But yes, it was on their maps as a recommended bike path.
I mean, my sense is that as a general policy, low cost additions of bike lanes does help address congestion, and it makes it so people are more likely to use alternative ways of getting around. I don't see any issues with this, suggesting that, or discussing it later.
Someone could also suggest that it be submitted to NPO for funding. It's on their map. Let's take advantage of it.
Real place I want is Oak Park. Super wide. Yeah.
I will go back and fix this. It's shorthand. This one is very specific about plant, improve the sidewalk. That's the old number 9 between, or plant between the old number 9 and,
I think there's a dry cleaner right there, and I think they were required to put in a sidewalk in front of it, but then it ends, and I know that this is sort of the city's patchwork, they require new businesses to install sidewalks, right, but they don't have to connect necessarily, and so there is some weird dead-ending sidewalks in that spot.
And some weird property in between on the other side, between the trail and the post, or Masonic Lodge. Who owns that property?
Oh, yeah, that big with the lot.
Sounds like that
Substation
needs
out
to go
there.
in, or
Yeah, it's on-
Good idea.
would you mark that one as include? Sorry.
Yeah, because it looks like the dry cleaner has sidewalk, but the theater does not. The big retail center that does. And it looks like there's a piece in between dry cleaners that does not. So it starts and stops.
Like some apartments.
And apartments do not.
So the next 3 are all Highland, and you see this one and this one. They're both sidewalks. This is also a bike lane and sidewalk. Most of it are these 2. Both address Kinder Park, which is a very, very, very popular park for parents. I can tell you that for sure. But there are no sidewalks or anything there.
Very little parking.
Yeah,
I know.
parking is a problem over there. I've heard from people that live over there.
Yes. Imagine who. Would be my wife with it.
Those two draw comments are identical locations.
So what I'm wondering, it seems like there's a lot of projects in here that don't directly address some of the biggest congestion issues that we're worried about, but it seems like these are too valuable to throw out.
Yeah, I think.
So like we need to somehow get them, I think accept a lot of these, but put them in a special place in the plan.
Well, the city has a sidewalk plan, right, and we all have an annual contractor.
Right, so we're designing multiple sidewalks right now under construction on a couple. And actually, council this last year gave me even another budget for just like little miscellaneous gaps of sidewalk that I've never had.
I think it's a good recommendation.
Yeah, if I have a list of sidewalks, then it makes it easy for me to.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we add a section into our report that's just sort of miscellaneous sidewalk improvements that were suggested by the community.
Yeah.
And
As a policy to eliminate discontinuous sidewalks.
there you go. Yeah.
It's a little girl issue.
Right, so
It is. Yeah.
those, the one that I just
Safety
dimly
issues.
clicked on.
I don't want to just go.
I'll include the first one because it's the most detailed, and then these 2 I will mark as
Goes on forever.
We don't have it.
It's a new Robert Earl King song. Hardly ever ends.
We're almost through.
This is Oak Parks Drive, bike lane connecting Herf Road, Herf Farm, 17 Herf to Main Street. And
So,
this is the one that's like
We're doing it.
747.
Oak Park to Fry, we're 90% done with plans from Oak Park to Fry to put a sidewalk on the north side and add a bike lane on there as well. But from Fry back to Herf, I believe there's sidewalk on both sides already.
So would any of this not be addressed once you
Bike
finish
lane,
the contract?
probably. Could you do that on the north side of Oak Park?
So once you
Between Friday and Thursday?
From Maine to Fry, yes, we're gonna put a bike lane. But from Fry to Herf, we don't have room on the pavement without taking away parking.
There's tons of parking there.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Those are rear-loaded lots, so
Yeah.
people parking front.
Is there,
I mean,
move it forward, just to have them connected if possible.
Sure. Move forward and keep crossing off the paper.
Well, that's, you've got that line, the bike sidewalk, kind of 10-foot wide.
There's two sidewalks on here. One of them's got to be for tires.
No, we just all the other one on one side. But, yeah. I would be trying to get the bikes off the road, but getting them push it.
Again, we're moving into the ones that, into a few here, no, thank you. Moving into a few of the ones that, this one's actually been addressed already. 46 east of town.
Geez, we haven't talked about that one yet.
What is cross street?
is that the high school? That's
Yeah,
Champion.
it's Champion Boulevard and Woods of Burn.
Yeah.
Dangerous. There's a lot of kids up there, so I've noticed started to walk across that.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah. You can see the fear in their eyes.
Going to school, like the kids in Woods of Bernie don't go to that high school.
I saw high schoolers crossing, so I don't know.
Walking
Probably
by
want
garage.
to eat pizza.
Yeah, you can pizza, I guess.
I don't know.
Woods of Bernie goes to the
Special
restaurant.
kids that go to Champion or something. But yeah, maybe they're going to get pizza.
There's another one suggested, another roundabout suggested the intersection of 46 and Esperanza. And a roundabout suggested at Herf Ranch Boulevard and
For French and which one? Northern?
Is that a controlled intersection?
So these are all 46 east.
Okay.
So those are all signalized intersections.
So the proposal would be to get rid of the signal and put a roundabout?
And all three of those, that each one of those intersections has a suggestion, it looks like, for a roundabout. Would any of
I don't
those,
think that was me.
would you want to move forward?
All of them.
All of,
What would you like to
move all of them forward?
It's interesting, I mean, I like the idea of moving those forward, but I also feel like I don't want to take away attention from our really highest, the spots where we really think we want to move. But
I think those are worthy suggestions, but yeah, not necessarily, they're not the immediate tasks ahead of us. Because I agree with you, Jonah, like, we gotta solve congestion pinpoints.
Herf and 46 is.
Roundabouts
But
work.
I still think it can go to the
They're more
parking lot.
accessible because of the
safer.
common going east, west, north, and south.
But-
You're causing more congestion, slowing everybody down on 46 on some of those.
Yeah.
Which one was that?
Oh, Herf Ranch.
Did we say that one's not a priority? Not?
Not priority, but if it ever is possible, we would like to see it there. Is that correct?
It's about how they're designed, the intersections, they're safer, so, and they also are safer.
Things in the middle of the way.
Well, you push the pedestrians back off of them. And you can also put flashing lights in the pedestrians. It's possible. Statistically, they check out once the levels go up to a certain point of carrying capacity.
What is this?
These are all regarding Herf Road, and again, these have not been whittled down by our little group of volunteers. First 5 concern, looks like the main section of Herf Road.
Yeah, that's an old San Antonio, so. they want a roundabout at Old San Antonio,
Mhm.
and there's a signal there, lots of room, so I said, move forward, see how it plays out.
I think that'd be
Oh,
a good
okay,
spot.
sorry, it took me a while to figure out where that was.
And there's some proposed further down San Antonio and Cascade, right?
Yes.
I remember. It's okay.
Is that what?
This is a more generalized comment to create a series of roundabouts. With these, I know these are duplicates, we can just mark this as a duplicate, it's okay with everyone. Because all these are elsewhere as individuals.
As probably the author of a number of those, my perspective was to facilitate flow around the city. You know, we don't need to get, stop everybody every spot as they make their way around the city. This doesn't make any sense to me.
Roundabout at Oak Park and Herf, right in front of the apartment complex.
It's not.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the idea is to kind of keep cars flowing right there, then it makes sense. I mean, I think we should.
When the traffic's almost equal, that's when they matter, when you don't have a lot of traffic going against Herf Road traffic. Herf Road is so much more stacked than that cross street.
It's not
I
gonna
don't
work.
think we're,
Can you explain that again?
it makes sense that, like Herf and 46, you have equal amount of traffic. So you're trying to consolidate in a roundabout to make everything efficient. But when you take a Herf and an apartment entrance
Yeah, right.
or something, it just doesn't make sense to put all that money into
Right.
a roundabout.
Right now, since we operate that signal, I know how it works. And right now, it gives, HERF will stay green at all times unless the sensors pick up
Yeah,
someone
traffic
on Oak
capture.
Park.
Yeah.
So if no one ever shows up on Oak Park, it's a green light at all
I
times.
think so, that makes sense. So that would be a situation where a stoplight probably works
Yeah, I
okay.
think
Where it would start failing is once those apartments are at full capacity and the restaurants all fill out in there, and if that got
So
real,
it could be a future, but yeah.
yeah.
That's a do not include, correct? It's handled by the Herf and Main roundabout.
This is one John Kite drew up a schematic for, and I thought it made sense there.
Oh, yeah, right.
South Main.
Got a lot of traffic on
Again,
Main
it
now.
runs people coming off of 46 East over to 410. I'm sorry, to I-10. Oh, wait.
Any objections?
Well, that's where HERF intersection. So that's their.
No, I agree, I agree. I think that was supposedly there was tools.
I think it makes sense in this case.
Again, it goes back to
Traffic capture system, like they already have, Jeff. Yeah. 12.1. Traffic signal on this.
It's the one that they went with.
Yeah. Waiting is traffic light. It's a city light. It's just on time of the day.
Jeff, do you have any comments on this one?
This is.
This is
Old San Antonio.
Herb and San Antonio.
Herb and Old San Antonio.
Yeah.
I thought we just talked about putting the roundabout here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same.
This would be a more immediate fix if there are things that the light could be reprogrammed. But it's not needed.
I wouldn't include that, that's.
No.
Never had an issue there either.
There's some urban cynicism.
Especially on the front or side of
This is perfect.
Yeah.
No, I'm bed by 6:30.
That's coming off of her straight across.
Yeah.
I make
Oh,
her.
we were just talking about
It's fine with it.
Why don't those connect?
I don't think the topography allows for that, is that? It's a
That's
steep
gonna be
hill.
a tough one.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
There's a
real steep hill there.
Yeah, I don't think that's probably.
It's more of a
There's a
how do you-
surgical
how
center.
do you round them around the bevy?
Dr. Stahl won't like
So that's
this.
South Main, that's Herb Road.
So these are, I think these are both these are
Christus
identical.
Parkway is that little connector, but it just,
Yeah, so one of those is mine. I think the biggest reason is, I guess, there's not gonna be a lot of good access to the hospital.
Right.
So you have one-way frontage road as the only in and out for the hospital.
Mhm.
So, I mean, when you have 75% of the population living on the east side of I-10, and you have to get back, I mean, it's gonna be pretty tough if the ambulance can only go one way to get there. So it's more of like a long-term, obviously super long-term, but as the city continues to grow, I mean, it's just kind of, the hospital's not set up for success.
That's never gonna be addressed by this, right? We're just
So,
stuck with the
I
one.
mean, I think there's gonna be a chance for a grade separation between where Bucky's is and 46. I don't think there's enough room in there, is it?
Yeah, and there's a minute order that we have to deal with from Austin that basically said that Christus Parkway and Norris and I forgot the other name of the road where the apartments are on, are like the only roadway connections that are allowed to touch the frontage road. As part of when the city was able to get that frontage road built initially, a handful of years back, Austin kind of put some stipulations on future connections to the frontage road.
I mean, I kind of like the feng shui of having Herb Road just comes right into town and it goes right up to the highway, but it's just hard for me to see exactly what problem that solved, since you could turn left and get right on South Main and get to the highway. And did they, in the redesign at the South Main I-10 intersection, can you get on going north there now? Get on I-10 going, or I'm sorry, get on 10 going west, I guess?
Like behind.
Yeah, you'll basically go on the frontage road behind Tractor Supply and work your way, and eventually you'll be able to get on.
It will, okay.
Yeah, you can't do it now, but eventually.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, behind Tractor Supply, it's elevated right there,
I
but
think how tall that bridge is, yeah.
what's on the other side of that? That's Buc-ee's. So Buc-ee's can open up a hospital with beaver nuggets.
What else?
And jerky. Oh, they got it all. Yeah, Yeti cooler and a colonoscopy.
Just avoid the beef jerky.
Okay.
This one, I believe, is about to be completed, is it not?
Not as it's drawn there, but they've submitted designs. The ranches at Creekside people have submitted designs to take it all the way to Copper Cove.
Is that
That's
just
a connector?
vehicular, I mean, just pedestrian, or is that vehicular?
Cars. It's a roadway with sidewalks. And again, that was on thoroughfare plans that we have to do. So we have plans, but
Northern, is it possible to this one just to say we support a vehicular connection, but we don't have to say it has to be the specific one that was suggested on the map?
I think by the time this gets published, it should be done, right?
yeah, but it's not that exact connection.
Mhm.
They're just showing it connecting to the neighborhood,
Right.
but we're taking it, they're designing it all the way to Copper Creek.
So, I mentioned this in the report, so how does the city staff know this? Is it the Perf Ranch, Copper, whatever connection, or what's the
name for it?
Yeah, what do y'all know that connection is?
Unit something of ranches at Creekside. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. It's either 3 or 4.
Okay, well, it's not, there's no memorable project.
No. It's just it's a unit that's being built with additional single family for ranches.
So do not include or include?
I say include a connector from Perf Ranch to Creekside Cove.
Yeah.
Is there any chance that they won't build this connection?
I'd say put it in there.
That's, I'm not gonna say it. Developer can always disappear.
Jeff, you said Herb Ranch to where?
Creekside Cove.
Old San Antonio. And this one is on the interim report. The first comment is just a blanket Old San Antonio road improvements. The second comment is more detailed: improve the roadbed, create 3-lane road with center turn lane, add sidewalks each side wide enough to accommodate bicycles, joggers, hikers, and create a roundabout at the intersection of Cascade Cavern Road.
Well, I don't know that we need to get specific about the number of lanes and stuff, but I think the road needs to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
Which one would you like to put in there, the generalized
I'd
one?
go with the general myself, because I think it should have bike lanes for at least, how many schools along there, 1 or 2?
Two public schools.
I don't want to overwhelm y'all. Is everybody hanging in there? Do you want to go on to the other?
Are we done yet?
We can stop. I know when I start losing, I can still when I start losing everybody.
Do you feel like you're losing them?
I do that one. We can do a few more pedestrians crossings suggestions.
Quick poll, does anybody have comments on the reports drafts that were issued that we need to discuss today?
Where can we find them?
They were handed out at the last committee meeting.
Are they online at all?
I don't believe so yet. Okay, then you got the rest of the meeting.
All right. We'll look at the City Park Road since we've got Jeff Carroll here. This is the bike lanes, sidewalks, completing all the way down the tunnel of trees.
So this is one of our projects that we're actively working on, design-wise. We've hit an impasse that the fairgrounds wants a ridiculous request for an easement, because we're trying to do an easement to the fairgrounds property instead of knocking out trees on City Park Road. And so we're kind of at an impasse that we're working through.
Is it the county property?
And Jeff, didn't y'all, that new paved trail that goes through the nature center, isn't that somewhat meant to alleviate some of that? It goes through the ballparks and stuff?
Correct. There's like a boardwalk type of
Yeah.
structure. I was told that when the boardwalk was built, it was going to help alleviate what we're seeing as the high
Still
school
have
kids.
idea.
We see a large amount of high school kids that for whatever reason want to park at the city park instead of on property, whether it's younger students that don't have parking passes.
We know why.
Or other reasons why. So they're parking at the city park and walking to the school. They don't want to take the fancy trail that we built. They want to walk to the road. So we're working with the Fair Association to try to acquire an easement. It's technically their property unless they don't have a fair. And then it's being their property.
Those kids will probably still walk down the road.
Probably.
It's a tree tunnel, man, it's nice.
Yeah, so that is. So if we can't get an easement from the Fair Association, that project will probably die. But they've asked for
I think,
improving
honestly,
their
I think we
RV
can
spots
survive
and
with
free sewer connections for life.
Slows down traffic. Everyone's killing squirrels anyway. Slow them down. Kids at speed bumps.
So this is does anyone have a problem including this one in the recommendation?
I think we should put some heat on the Fair Association.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, they do actually slow you down.
Doesn't live in Vernon or Kendall County.
We sent them, almost sent them a letter when they put the
I guess they had directors meeting
cell phone
before
tower
the
there.
fair.
Because when the land was donated from our family, they had stipulations that had to be used for certain things.
Give them a check on that.
So this gap is the gap between City Park Road
Yes.
They just ignored it.
Did they really?
over and around through Longhorn, number 9.
So I came up with this bold concept, right, of like, okay, you do a skywalk for the pedestrians to connect the two parts of Old Number 9. You avoid that Herf Road hell. and which is kind of a sketchy place, honestly, to cross, to walk, and bike and all that stuff, which a lot of people use. But then have that High Line connect with the old number 9 railroad depot and have essentially a boardwalk influence, like experience, where you could actually buy food up there and then progress down the old number 9. Maybe that's me being up in the Northeast too much on the coast, but that's how they do stuff.
That whole proposal sounds like it's up in the air to me.
Well, Jeff, we have to raise that intersection eventually, right, because of drainage concerns?
On our drainage plan, it's more than likely going to be, we haven't finished it, but we have a project there that, on our long-term goals, that we want to raise that intersection 9.5 feet.
Okay. Is that, raising it and then going under to connect, is that cheaper than building this fantastic boardwalk across?
Correct. If we have to raise the road 9.5 feet, it'd be easy to put a pipe of some kind that people could walk through.
That's what I'm thinking, maybe a more cost-effective approach, Mr. Eldridge. I like the idea. I'd
No.
I want to get my burgers and shake there anytime. But
Yeah, no, my impetus was just to get people through there safely.
Yeah,
So
there needs to be some way to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing included
Light it.
High water.
Light it, yeah.
High water.
Don't go there, don't close it off, the gates would flood.
Included at a different elevation.
Subterranean. How about a tunnel?
I mean, I like the idea of some form of way for pedestrians to be able to get across there.
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't know how that looks, but
exactly.
Right now
that's
it's
the bottom
scary.
line.
It'd be enough. It'd be 3 of them. Yeah, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's got something, but he never pretty much emergency access.
what does this one say?
This is a sidewalk,
That is all private property of the school district.
That's in front of
Private
Champion.
property what?
Of the school district.
The school district owns every bit of that property.
sidewalk needed on this section of school property to much cut through traffic speeding through there during rush hour. Pedestrians from the trail do walk through here, making for a dangerous situation.
To me, I think this is just another sidewalk recommendation that we should pass through and put into our bucket, and the city decides what they can deal with and what
Or
they
the
can't.
schools decides.
Well, I mean, the school
The school
district can
decides.
take our recommendation as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be a safe route to the schools deal, maybe.
Possibly. In front of the school district. Think better of us than the Fair Association.
Yeah, clearly.
Set a standard over there.
Garden Street, crosswalk across number 9, potential cross.
Well, that's who serves on the board.
Oh, no, that's what
Who
goes
serves on
behind
the
the
board? That's a place to start.
Goes behind what?
Well, the old number 9 just kind of goes into.
It just disappears.
Yeah, this is named by the fire station.
Where old number 9 basically ends.
Yeah. That's not it.
What's the
That's
recommendation?
not
No,
that.
it's called something else. No.
Ad vote?
I think that's, ad vote goes across.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's just, it's not a road, but
It's a ditch.
Well, it is now. Crosses
Parking area behind
because
like
It's the
business.
bums.
The businesses have to use it for parking.
Well, it needs to be
Right,
connected
yeah,
on up
exactly.
All the way.
quite a way, yeah.
And honestly, I think somewhere else in here we have comments or suggestions.
We just put it in the interim recommendations as part of the roundabout at Edward.
Yeah, you can't do that. No, pedestrian only, you might continue number 9 up there.
Right.
You know, past all those businesses, there was a blank up there for lunch or something. Yeah, no road.
we have a schematic to take the number 9 all the way to 5 Points.
That's what I thought.
The problem is many businesses that use city property every day to park their cars, their customers' cars on. And so that if we were to improve that, there's several businesses that will lose all their parking.
So I get all my brains.
Do they license that from us? They just use it?
Free parking for years.
Yeah, but-
We want it for a
Parking
Actually, probably can be worked out. I mean, it's a matter of engineering.
like we worked out, like, because they've been using it for years, like squatters relations.
Adverse possession?
Okay,
Yeah.
first three, this is HERF, and honestly, the first three are all about the intersection at HERF Road. That's her.
Hang on, I can't hear. Hang on. Order in the court.
You guys are cutting up.
Say that again, Northern.
The HERF comments here, the first three all involve the intersection.
Earth and River
The
Road,
intersection there.
No.
which we talked about,
Connects sidewalks, I believe we just discussed that.
build a tunnel.
Well, look at number 84. That may be something that Jeff's already dealing with your little fund for.
A little 10-foot gap or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, we have that designed, and we're gonna have that out pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
I've heard about that.
Do we need to include this one if it's already?
if it's already underway, then, no, there's no turning back, right? You're gonna do it.
Designing it, I haven't put it out to bid.
That included.
Included.
We can help.
But yeah, that was one of the, when I got this budgeted money, that was the first one that jumped in, was that.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That's, the developer built the sidewalk he had to on the limits of his property.
And
there's-
stopped it.
Thanks a lot.
There's a piece of property
And
that's owned by
low
someone
impact
else.
development, right?
General comments on pedestrians, cars turning right on red, can't see bikes, that are waiting at the light, or waiting at the ramp on the sidewalk.
Close it down.
Cars turning on red, can't
Right.
see riders.
Turning red, can't
Seems like
see
burners and everything too.
ramp.
So I don't know if anyone noticed, but TxDOT changed that signal last week, so the right lane is now a right turn lane. And this middle lane is only a through lane. It used to be a dual right. They changed that signal on Monday of last week. So now, if you're making a right turn from HERF to River,
You have to be in the far right.
you have to be in the far right lane, but it also allows people to make the right turn. When the River Road left turns are going, it allows people to make right turns. So it's giving a more time period for people to make right turns.
I noticed that people are doing left out of the center lane as well, and it seems logical,
Yeah, you're left out of center lane, I'm thinking.
but they're doing it. You can see a lot of guys do it.
From
Coming
Highway
up,
46 to HERF?
yes.
Say you can, but yes, you can.
I haven't seen anyone do that. But
I saw 2 people in 1 week, and I was like, it's like a trend now.
So
Somebody's
what 93 was saying is because those people that are coming up HERF turning right on River
You
Road
can't see.
are looking over their left shoulder to see if it's okay to do
Right.
it
Not
as they
right.
turn right. And oh, by the way, there was a bicyclist fixing to
Cross.
be out in the crosswalk.
Yep.
They're just gonna run over. That's what this concern is, I don't know.
Got it.
Yep, that is.
How do you solve that?
A roundabout.
You're here.
In fact,
9 foot tall.
that's one part.
To get access
Elevated
to,
roundabout.
that's right, number 9 on the other side.
Yeah, and in fact, we have a very detailed roundabout schematic that was designed in the Kendall Gateway study for that spot right now.
Let's have the exact expression.
Yep, let's say that out loud.
You said the G word.
I know.
It'd be okay if you said prior design.
Right, right.
Jen, we're gonna have to ask you to resign.
Broke the rule of cycling.
Order in the court.
It's like,
I know. And at least include it as,
Figure out how to package
Fix
it
it.
later.
this is a general comment, do we want to, and it's a duplicate, the others are more specific.
That I wouldn't include, that's just a.
This comment is across from one end of the new HERF to the other. Continuation trails, sidewalks.
So I did, from Maine to Old San Antonio, there's sidewalk on both sides of the road, so I didn't really understand this comment. But from Old San Antonio back around the corner, there's not sidewalk. But I didn't understand why they drew it that way.
Say they in the old San Antonio, what doesn't have sidewalk,
Old San Antonio, like,
right here?
that part. There's no
So
sidewalk.
this little corner, this little section.
The other part is sidewalk on both sides of the road, so
Yeah.
I didn't know
Yeah,
what.
where the number 128 is, sidewalk on both sides.
I'd say, maybe just make a note about that one spot and include it as, you know, the pile of
Yeah, it's a big deal.
sidewalks.
Sidewalk.
Exactly.
Mr. Harper owns that property that's for sale, so that's
This is the Johns Road crossing over I-10. I don't,
Crossing under.
Sidewalk?
over whatever.
Are they asking for
The-
sidewalk?
I think they might be
Yes,
asking for
that bridge,
sidewalk.
there's no pedestrian.
The bridge is too small.
So everybody in Ranger Creek and stuff can't get to the school, like nobody can walk or bike to the school.
And I have met pedestrians on that bridge before, there is no space.
Just on sidewalk.
Yeah.
There's no,
Bike across.
do we have any?
Well, I think we make the recommendation and, you know, the city, and county, and we do it.
one day when they redo the bridge.
One day.
They're expensive.
Because they tore it down.
Hey,
They're adding sidewalk on all the other ones.
Can we ask Jeff, do you know if TxDOT has short-range plans to put a new bridge over John? All right, John.
Short range? No, definitely not short range.
So, I was talking to Danny Zank, I think, about trying to create some sort of pedestrian crossing that isn't about, you know, going along with the cars, like going under the highway.
So there's an apartment complex deal that's in early conversations there at the corner of Frederick and I-10.
Yeah.
And they're proposing to build a trail underneath I-10 to connect to West San Antonio Road.
Yeah.
That's in the ongoing early stages of conversation.
I know we only have a handful of those opportunities, we've got to get every one of those.
The city's all excited for that trail.
Awesome.
Just to make sure.
So, this sidewalk is on one of my city lists for one day when we have nothing better to do, but I would put that on there, and now that I have funds to do it. We get phone calls about that.
So there's just one, like a little missing piece of a sidewalk right there, or?
Yeah, Garden Street has sidewalk all the way on the west side,
Yeah.
but from Kitty Cat to number 9, there's a gap.
Okay.
So it's been on our list for a while, just very at the bottom.
Yeah.
John, I'll get it taken care of.
Woman sidewalk
We were gonna try to
in
find a
Washington
in-house, but
and
hadn't made it.
Now, this is, all those are sidewalks, we just need to add them to the list.
this one got into private property. I don't know that there was anything.
That's the Convention and Visitors Bureau built their sidewalk, and again, just built sidewalk to their property line and it dead ends to, there's a gap.
Right here,
Yeah. Yep.
so what was that?
Just continue, just add it in.
Yeah, because it's eventually. So let's get down to this one. Old San Antonio bike route. What is that called?
Scenic angles.
I mean, if they're talking about improvements to Old San Antonio, I know John Kite had the 3-lane, turning lane in the middle, but I think a bike lane on there would be fantastic.
This is also in the scenic loop recommendations, I don't want to duplicate it.
It's got a movie theater, it's got a high school, middle school, like, it's a no-brainer to create access
I
for.
think it is. I know the city has sidewalks.
Yeah, elementary,
Doctor's office.
Middleland.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Industrial.
Apartments.
How much right away do they have there?
We do the parking.
I would say that's something on our track.
Yeah.
right, we'll talk about the parking, since we just did Main Street last week or whatever. Those are 4 suggestions for parking lots, parking garages here in the area. Your old fiber,
Parking lot on parking lot?
the parking garage, parking garage,
You need a parking?
parking garage.
Northern, I know that there was a couple parking garages also suggested from the study that shall not be named. The G word. There was a couple parking garages. Do you know if any of these overlap with the ones that were suggested in that study?
I'm not sure which ones overlap, but
Northern, could you show the map of that again?
which ones? This one right here?
That's all private, school
Oh,
private.
that's not
school.
right. That's right.
Partner with Bernie.
It's on the other end. It's already parked. Should be right here. I think the lot you're talking about is the one right
Yeah,
here.
that one was partnered with Bernie
Yeah.
to, Bernie ISD to
Yeah.
visually replace parking, yeah. Replace the parking lot with a parking garage.
What's the next one? Sorry.
The next one is a possible parking garage for county parking lot maintenance houses. Parking garage, county owns a portion of the property.
Oh, gosh.
What's that?
Too far off, maybe.
That's what she was talking about.
That's private property.
That's
Yeah, that's
the stinger right there.
behind Klein.
Oh, but actually,
It's
the
actually
county,
the Care Choice owns.
Yeah.
yeah, the county owns some of that, but some.
And
most of
there's
it's
a
private.
cat-
Same owner as the nursing home. owns all
Yeah.
the majority of it.
Pam and I were just talking, she was saying that the county, she thinks owns 5 acres.
Yeah, we own some property there, behind the GN Logic.
Are there intentions for that property, or is it just sort of?
We're hiring a facility consultant to talk about our whole facility and look at that. I don't know that we have any plans specifically, but, yeah, anything with a parking garage on private property or other than county property, I think we're getting way off in the weeds there.
Fair enough.
Would it be possible that this would be, oh, I'm sorry, Jeffrey.
I was gonna say, the only comment I'd have is kind of going back to Main Street, that if one day we want to remove parking from Main Street, to fix congestion on Main Street, we need to have alternate parking somewhere else for all those
Well,
cars.
it should be linked if we're gonna do, I think you can have a hard time.
It is in the city's master plan too.
Well, and I was wondering if it couldn't be maybe a policy suggestion or something that some additional parking structure of some kind, and we could provide, you know, a handful of random ones that were provided by the public, but I don't know that, and I don't know if it's worth going through all the parking garages and guessing as to whether or not the person might sell the property or not.
Can we start putting Main Street projects all in one and propose that the city do a study on Main Street? I thought, was that at the subcommittee level or one of these meetings, or did I dream it?
Yeah, it was kind of in the discussion about Main, we were just gonna come up with a bucket of suggestions about Main Street, what to do with it.
So you're gonna have to interpret that.
I can create one that just says, Main Street, consider parking garage somewhere,
Yeah.
You know,
and then not include these 3.
can we go back to the one that they're suggesting you guys have this parking lot catty-corner from City Hall? That might be a good option, frankly, because you could partner with the city. The city eventually will need more parking around this building. I mean, coming to the meeting today, the parking lot was pretty full. So that could be an overflow for the city, overflow for the district, and maybe somebody will actually visit the visitor center on their way into town, while walking through that parking garage. What do you think, Rich?
Could that be like a bond
Yeah.
project?
Public-private partnership.
Would it be better at the end?
You're not talking about this one, are you, Tim? You're talking about.
I think it's
He's talking about this one.
No, it's not that one, it's.
Oh,
It's on the other side.
It's on the other side, right across from City Hall here.
So that's
ahead,
this
Rich.
one, but maybe one.
So the one right on Main Street,
Yeah.
the little
The
gravel
corner of
lot.
Johnson and Main.
That's between St. Helena's, the city, and the school district.
Yeah, there's a three-way
That'd be a
partnership.
good spot for a garage, though.
Yeah, okay, so tell us your views on that.
Well, you know, we're studying that property right now because the old administration building is on that property. And frankly, it wouldn't cost that much to renovate it and turn it into a pretty nice facility. So what the needs are for the district beyond just the old administration building will be determined. But frankly, we're looking at the potential use of the whole four-acre piece of property there.
And isn't it the
And I
track?
understand the city would love to have it, but, you know, we have a lot on that street, and our middle school north is landlocked. And so that's an issue that we've got to look at. We're doing a master plan for the whole street.
And that's where the track is right now.
Yeah.
Part of it.
But you could consider thinking outside the box, use that for administrative office space if you needed to with parking above. Just thinking outside the box. So I suggest we keep it in. I mean, I like the idea.
You can
Well,
make
technically that
we
way.
stopped at all of the parking
Well,
garages,
just,
though,
you know,
right?
partnering with the school district, great partners over there that we partner
Well,
with.
and when
Those
you look at
microphones,
this,
I don't have a-
the parking,
Just don't mess with the teachers at middle school.
the school is a,
It could be a revenue generator for you guys, Rich. Think about that. Parking garages generate revenue.
I think we should, Rich, on the record, speaking for the whole school.
Divert your comments about David.
I wouldn't put it in that position, but I
What was the
kind of
final
like
decision
the
from that corner back there?
creative alternative here somewhere.
From the circle of wisdom, what was the final decision on parking garages?
Rich is gonna go study it and come back next week.
He's gonna go cut a deal with his fellow board members in the city to put a parking garage on that corner of Johns and Main.
We could, this is one suggestion, in the recommendation say, parking garage should be considered, and here are the possible locations, or somewhere else.
Or here are locations recommended by the public,
Right,
but
how's that work?
Well, somebody had also mentioned that it should be a policy recommendation that needed to be considered in conjunction with the Main Street program, and I think that all fits together. So we put in a policy recommendation that it all ties together, I think would be the most appropriate place.
yeah. And then maybe we could just kind of skip all of the parking garage suggestion, or like kind of all batch them in one.
I don't know what you guys have a plan you should come up with.
Keep scooting further and further away.
Yeah, no, the body language is not
Look
good.
out,
is it?
so that I can capture that.
Yeah, the body language is not good. I guess we'll move on.
Okay, I am going to stop there, because I can tell I've lost.
No, we're doing good. We're making-
It's 3:30, we've done a lot.
No, we're gonna have to go to the trolley. We're good.
Oh, let's get the ball revolver.
All right, we'll do the,
Yeah, this trolley's good stuff.
The school endorsed money to start.
there, okay.
I like that.
Parking there, parking there. So we brought it
One list here of public transportation, trolley, bus stops, asks. There is.
Okay, hang on.
Antonio, they're still doing the.
Northern, I can't hear you because there's a lot of chatter. Order.
And
So we're
take
gonna
place. 1 second break.
Run through the
Ready to go.
public transportation here real quickly. These are bus stops, trolley stops, what have you. It's all public transportation. Comments or suggestions?
Well, we
There's
certainly
several
should.
suggestions for a trolley loop. There's getting the bus station here, which I believe there is still a bus station planned at the Alamo area colleges.
Yes,
Yes.
there is a via stop at
That's
that
very
campus.
Right, that's right at the county line.
Yeah. Well, there is no public transportation in Vernon, right? I mean,
Just ACOG's Animal Regional Transit's only thing.
Yeah, but
There could be.
we talked about the driverless trolleys. We had a
Anything
presentation.
in the
The good news on that, March of 2020.
Yeah, they were part of the roundabout.
That's what I
town.
thought, yeah. And some have used those very successfully.
So Marcus was just telling me about some sort of.
There's a corporation, I think they're called the Goodman Group. They've done studies for cities to kind of basically get the funding put in place so they can get a transit system, whether it's buses or different forms of transportation. But they kind of come in here, they work with the federal government through certain grant programs, and it's a process, but they kind of get the ball rolling and kind of build from there.
It's like a seed. It's seeds public transportation
Yeah.
project, basically.
Yeah, I recognize who wrote the first one on the, talking about senior access and handicap access. And it's a lady who works in the senior community here in town for years and has observed how incredibly difficult it is
hard
for people to get to shops, to their church, to Main Street, anywhere, given the state of our lack of any kind of mobility for challenged people. This person's very passionate about it, but she's just lived it for decades, and it pains her a lot to see us not ever doing anything to address it. That's the genesis of that first suggestion, just how much good it could do for a segment of our community, back to your equality thing. The part of the rest of these, I can't remember, I authored one or two of these in my feeble attempt a year and a half ago in this committee to get the chamber to take on the phrase in our mission that our work should support appropriate economic development. And having visited Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and seen what it is, what it benefits their businesses to have a bunch of loops of trolleys, and I guess they fund them. I know you pay a pittance to ride on them, but point being is that certainly on weekends, there are trolleys running in various loops that connect people, buyers, to stores. And it's a big deal up there. It works. I don't know what it takes to make it work. I don't know if there's any appetite in our business community, our retail community, to help make that so. But that was what was in my head on crowdsourcing when I wrote that down. And it's never really gotten any legs.
I think it's a policy decision, Bob, to even, I mean, if there's clearly a need. The question is, and we can guess at what the best way to get public transportation is, whether it's bring VA in, or do a trolley, or do an autonomous vehicle. But I think until City Council says we're interested in providing public transportation for our citizens, and maybe, I think that's the recommendation we ought to get, is we're going to need it at some point in time.
A policy record.
But Don, what we're touching on are 3 or 4 different specific independent components. Talk about trolley, that ties back into parking because it's a very specific circular route that people get picked up, they get dropped off, and they know it's running in the garage. On a special weekend or for shopping purposes, what you were talking about is somewhat of a demand response for senior adults and disabled to be picked up from their home and taken to destinations and then returned to their home, which is a different, as opposed, and then the third component could be a park and ride, where it saves you the trouble of driving to the university or your place of business and things like that. So they are. Yes, I don't disagree that it needs to be policy decisions, but we also have to remember that there's different
It's not just
reasons
a
why
single,
you have,
yeah, I agree with
have the
that.
public transportation.
I also wonder if, as part of our policy suggestions, I mean, maybe this would be one of them, but it seems like this, I'm always reticent to say we need to do a study, because sometimes that's just pushing things down the road, but it almost seems like this is something that needs to be more thoroughly studied. I think, like Gary said, maybe the way to implement it would be start with a weekend shuttle thing that we try out that only runs on weekend times, and then we try to or maybe there's ways to test it. I just don't know how to go about starting, and so maybe there's some way we dig into.
Well, there are areas where you can tap into that. So
the area that Bob's talking about, Alamo Regional Transit has those numbers, and trust me, they're large. Because you have to schedule an appointment weeks out, you have to pay for it, so the data on that is there. And then I think collecting data, like where's the breaking point where, okay, this would make sense now for us to have this. And same thing involving the CVB or somebody like that about the trolley situation, which would help parking out too, with Main Street.
So this would mean an extra line item on people's property tax bills, like in San Antonio?
That's part of the policy decision. I mean, how do you pay for it? I mean, it's not.
I mean, it could be something Chamber of Commerce decides to fund because of all the generated revenue from all the people who are brought in from parking or whatever.
There's also federal programs too, so it could be a federally backed program for 5 or 6 years.
Just add it to the Cascade Caverns ticket price.
A lot of communities have their EDCs or downtown development corporations made. I don't know if that's what y'all were talking about earlier.
Which one of
I think
these
we should
would-
include them, all of them, because I think they're important.
So let's bundle it,
Consolidate.
grab them all, put them in a policy.
Okay.
I think it's important.
And I think that.
Park City Council does the same thing. Trolley running all the time. Except for parking
So,
garage, parking
John
garage.
wasn't
Like
on the
theirs,
meeting
it's also
today.
just downtown.
Is he gonna try to make the next one?
I think he will definitely try to make the next one.
It's back. How do you get this away from it? You can't figure this out.
I'm good, I'm done.
All right, we're gonna suspend further consideration for today. Our next meeting will be November the 2nd, which is Election Day. There are 8 amendments, so if you don't know what they are, please study up and plan on voting how you think you should vote. Also, Bryce, you just want to give us an update on John? I mean, you've been.
So John was supposed to be in the meeting. I was going to Zoom him in today, but he had something go on with his leg where he had to go back in this afternoon, so that's why he missed. But he's hoping to be back by the next meeting. I was so surprised. I was like, man, if I had a cold, I wouldn't be at this meeting. So he's a trooper, but y'all keep John and especially Evelyn in your prayers.
Yeah. Thank you, Bryce. Second round for public comment.
Don, you touched on it, but we do have an election going. As of yesterday, close of polls, 29 of us had voted. So we had Prop 2 on there, which has to be of extreme interest to this group, as well as many of us. And so just remember to get out and vote.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, okay, so if anyone wants to volunteer and come through the whittling down and helping, I just got the text. We'll be at her farm next Tuesday, 26th at 9 a.m.
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. Just for you guys.
And
I'll be
the
there.
back, tell them where the building is, the one.
This is a historic farmhouse there on her farm, the big 2-story farmhouse with a windmill.
Aim at the school, take a right.
Yeah.
And just for planning purposes, I'm not pressing you, because you all are doing great, about how many more of these sessions are going to be required to get through the crowdsourced data?
Let me look at what we did today.
Okay.
I'll definitely be able to email you after we go through
Okay.
more next Tuesday.
I guess what I'm looking forward to is there are some additional projects like the one that John Kite mentioned that we need to talk about and decide whether we want to carry those forward or not. And if anybody else has projects that may be controversial, that have not been considered by crowdsource, now's the time for you to start formulating your proposals so that we can bring those forward and consider them as a full committee. And so I'm guessing 3 or 4 meetings and it'll put us into December.
Northern, is there, do you have a number of how many we put aside? Just more or less, there's like, I want to say 40?
That what you've said no to? Or?
Yes. I said it more tactful, put aside.
Put aside.
No,
No, we said,
June 6th.
no, we went through quite a few, came out with a couple. It wasn't like we just reviewed 5 and here they are.
no. For the automotive, 33 we have taken out so far. 123 still left to go for automotive. But that's before we've looked at all of them, and some of those are gonna be duplicates, and are just not possible. For bike and pedestrians, we did a lot today.
A lot of redundancy.
Or similarities when you lump them
We're
together.
down to 65.
It's hard to consider separate.
So we've gone through like half, over half of the pedestrian and bike. Mainly because of Dave, thank you, for hanging in there.
Thanks, Northern.
Attaboys to Northern.
Terrific job.
Anybody else have any closing comments? All right, we're adjourned. We'll see you on November 2nd.